Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call our meeting to order. At this time, I would like to invite Supervisor Rivas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to acknowledge certificate of posting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Presentations, I would like to entertain a motion to approve both one proclamation and a certificate of recognition for this morning's
So moved.
awards. Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the first one that I'd like to present, I hope he is here, and it is for Mike Ravella. Mike, are you in the building? Oh, come on up, please. Good morning.
Morning, how you doing?
You look the same as you did when you were in high school. You know that.
No, I know I don't.
You do. This certificate is for Mike, presented to Mike. He has been a mail carrier for the United States Post Office for 46 years. He was actually recruited when he was still in high school, had to finish his high school education, and then started working. Or actually, you started working when you were, what, 18 years old?
18 years.
18 years old. We're very proud of him. I'm sure his family is very proud of him. He's been dedicated, and for those 46 years of faithful and dedicated service to the residents of Hollister, Mike, we want to present you with a certificate of recognition and give you thanks, because I know that you've been one of those that have been out there, rain, sleet, whatever the weather may be, you were out there. So we thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful retirement. So on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Best wishes.
Thank you.
Okay?
Good morning, Board. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for this award. It's especially special to me in the fact that I was born here, raised here, have raised my family here, and finished my actual working career here. So it's special, and I really want to thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mike, thank you. Okay, the second presentation, I will invite Supervisor De La Cruz to go up to the podium, and it is for the San Benito County Health Foundation.
Is anyone from the Health Foundation here? Actually, hold on a minute. Let me get my glasses, my friend.
I'd give you mine.
Welcome to the old age.
He must be over 40.
And then you're forgetful not to take them with you.
Go ahead and come up.
You can come up, please. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Every year, the Board of Supervisors proclaims a bi-national health week, and in behalf of the San Benito Health Foundations and the members of our community. And today, whereas the Secretariat of Health and the Secretariat of Foreign Relations of Mexico - Secretariats of Foreign Relations of El Salvador and Guatemala, the California Department of Health Services, the University of California, the Health Initiative of America, and the United States-Mexico Border Health Commission have recognized the necessity of improving access to health care and public health care information to Latinos community at the U.S.-Mexican border and throughout the state of California. And whereas, beginning on October 2001, the Health Initiative of the Americas, an unprecedented effort to overseen by multi-agency task forces, has coordinated health promotion activities in 40 U.S. states and as well as in 27 Mexican states and 3 provinces in Canada, and involving over 800 community-based organizations such as HIV, diabetic, occupational health, influenza, and access to health care insurance, is bilateral cooperative effort between HIA and the Mexican Secretary of Health and Foreign Affairs with the active participation of the state and local governments. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the San Benito County Board of Supervisors that in honor of these efforts to improve public health for the Latino community, the dates of October 3rd through 18th, 2015 is dedicated by National Health Week in the County of San Benito.
Thank you.
Just want to take a moment and say thank you. We cordially invite you all on behalf of San Benito Health Foundation to attend our health fair on October 14 from 3 to 6 p.m. And I have invitations here. If you would like to take one, I'll leave them up here on this desk. Thank you.
Thank you
once
very
again.
much. All right. Public comments. If there's anybody from the public in the audience that would like to address the board on items that are not on the agenda, you may do so at this time. Clerk of the board, we have one speaker card.
We have one speaker card, Marty Richmond.
Okay, Marty?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I just want to take this short opportunity to, I often come up here and criticize you. I have no compunction about doing that when I think you've made some bad decisions, so I want to give you credit for some good decisions too, just to be fair. I want to thank you, those of you, and I think it was all of you, that supported the PV2 solar project and supported the San Juan Oaks Del Webb development project. I think both of those are going to be very, very good for this county economically and socially, and also good for the nation to get us off of fossil fuel, which is one of my favorite things. And I think you've made some good decisions, and the court has upheld so far the PV2 project, and I think it's going to be a big financial boon to this county, the Del Webb project, eventually when everything is in, but even before that, just starting up, they are absorbing the costs, they are also going to absorb over 1,000 homes worth of the Hollister wastewater plant capability, which we were going to build into the plant years ago when we started, but the housing crash prevented it. So with that, the city is already coming up with plans to buy back some of the bonds, which will save the city almost $1 million a year over the life of the bonds. So we appreciate being able to work with the county. I just represent myself as a member of the city. Appreciate you helping us take our debt off our hands, and I appreciate that we were helpful in allowing you to put in 1,000 residential units without the use of septic systems that eventually always wind up with a problem in the ground. So all that together, I appreciate your support, and I give you credit, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, any other speaker cards on items that are not on the agenda?
Madam Chair, Grace Nutter would like to speak on a non-agenda item.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Good morning, board members.
Good morning.
My name is Grace Nutter, and I've been a resident of San Benito County for over 40 years. Throughout my years here, I raised my children and also contributed to my community through volunteerism, paying taxes, and lastly, by way of the arts. After my children left home to pursue their education and take on professional careers, I found myself asking how I could possibly share the vast knowledge and experience that I have obtained over the years towards something that can make a difference and provide me with a decent wage to be able to make ends meet. I decided to apply to become a productive employee of this county. I am now an employee at Health and Human Services, and feel like I am making a difference. I find myself here today because recently our county insurance plan took a major blow. The exorbitant rise in our rates has left me asking if my net income will be enough to make ends meet after all. Sadly, I'm also seeing the effects of our health benefits take their toll on the employees that I had just begun to call coworkers. The urgency of this matter is thus that I took precious time from my job to come and speak before you today. I've come to realize that from the moment each and every one of us walks out our door, we are affected in some way by a county employee. From the care for our roads, safekeepers of important documents, protection from harm, etc., etc. I'm here today to implore the esteemed members of this board to take action at the end of this month to keep life affordable for the devoted and tireless county employees in their time of need. Show us that you recognize and uphold the commitment we put toward our jobs on a daily basis. May your actions be the interpreter for our voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nutter. Any other speaker cards? Okay, we have another public speaker.
Yeah, public comment. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Mark Wyrick, organizer with SEIU Local 521. I wanted to speak briefly about staffing here at San Benito County because with what has been offered in bargaining for county employees to date has been truly inadequate to counter what will be devastating healthcare costs to our employees and their families. Since 2011, our county workers have lost on average about $11,600 as a result of furloughs, contributing more of their salary into retirement, paying the full expenses of medical premium increases, and not having any raises. Factoring in the cost of living, the purchasing power of a typical SEIU worker has fallen by 20% over the past 4 years. And as a result of this, we're now in the middle of a mass exodus of frontline employees. In the spring of 2015, 17% of the county's budgeted full-time employee positions were vacant, with over 50 open positions in our bargaining unit. As someone who meets your new employees in their orientation, I can tell you firsthand, I've literally met employees at this county's new employee orientation and then seen them a month later at Monterey County's new employee orientation. I've heard new hires comment about the sticker shock they see when they receive their first paycheck, and they see just how much is dedicated to cover health care and retirement from the salary they were expecting to be able to bring home to support themselves and their families. We know how expensive it is to devote time and resources to training a new employee that ends up leaving for greener pastures. No one wants this county to be a training ground for the other counties, but that is what is occurring. We're hiring new employees who probably came here with the best of intentions, but upon seeing just how hard it will be to afford to live here long term off the little that is being offered, they're leaving for other counties as soon as they receive the experience and training that they need. And if these health care increases are passed on to our employees, if the board does not take action and direct its bargaining team to consider the proposals we put forward to address these increases, then there will be an even greater exodus of employees out of this county. You can't build a better San Benito County without the frontline employees who provide the services. You just can't. And we need you as a board to recognize this and to take our proposals seriously. We hope we can count on your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and the members of the board. My name is Denise Quintana, and this is Joe Miranda. We're two members of your bargaining team at the table for SEIU county workers. I've been with the county a little over 13 years, and we're reaching a breaking point. If the board does not address our 2006 healthcare cost increases. If you do not support our workers, we can expect to see employees pay anywhere from $140 to $362 a month in additional health care costs. For employees with families, we're talking an additional $4,000 per year, and nobody can afford that. As a union, we've done everything we can to work with the county to take the steps needed to move our health care plan to a more affordable option. And I want to thank and acknowledge the Board of Supervisors in their support in trying to make that change happen. Unfortunately, we weren't able to change plans, and it's very disheartening to see that the current proposals that have been offered to us at the bargaining table are extremely inadequate in addressing the health care increases that the county employees are facing. We know the county has resources in one-time funds to help its employee for the coming year. At a minimum, the county has $6.9 million in fund balance available for discretionary use. And now, thanks to our joint efforts with the board to lobby to cancel the county's debt, obligations, and ERAF funds, the board is now more than ever in a position to avoid having to balance the county's budget on the backs of its workers yet again. The county has the resources to provide relief to its employees and to show that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. What we are asking for at our bargaining is reasonable. We know it's not enough to make workers completely whole, but it will help restore confidence to our employees that if they can hold out just a little bit longer, we will be able to build a better San Benito County, a county that can provide the services that our community needs, a county that can maintain a stable and experienced workforce of our frontline service providers. We call on the board to intervene and take leadership on this matter. We ask that you support our proposals for a fair contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to address the board on items not on the agenda? Okay, I will close the public comment section and come back to the department head announcements. CAO Espinosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we do have a few announcements this morning. The first announcement out of administration is we are requesting to move item number 27 on our regular agenda to the first item on a regular agenda. Hopefully that's okay with your board to make that for public comment.
Okay, and that item 27 then would come before item 23?
That's correct.
Right before item 23.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Unless there's an objection from the rest of the board, we will go ahead and move item number 27 to come before item number 23 on the regular agenda.
We have out of COG our new director, Mary Gilbert. She has a department head announcement.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have just a few announcements for you this morning from the Council of Governments. The first is that you had requested an update on the Highway 25 project and its inclusion on the constrained project list in our regional transportation plan. So I wanted to let the board know that we will have an item on your next board meeting agenda, and we've invited the executive director of AMBAG to also join to help educate both the board and the public on how COG is moving forward with that amendment to move the Highway 25 project forward. And as part of that, also an update on our traffic impact fee study that is underway at COG, and we're working with your staff on that update and should have a draft in October-November timeframe coming forward.
And Madam Chair, yes. If I could ask the COG director, have it back for a decision, or is it have it back as a report? Because I think we really need to get these impact fees in place and implemented.
Right. Yeah, the report will be coming before the COG board for first draft approval, and then it gets forwarded to the Board of Supervisors and the City Councils for inclusion in ordinances. So yeah, we're looking at the decision-making time frame coming up for approval on that.
It'll probably be before the first of the year that these new fees will be in place.
That's the goal, yes.
Okay, good.
And then at last week's COG meeting, the Council of Governments Board approved a memorandum of understanding with the Valley Transportation Authority for reinvigorating our mobility partnership. And that's a group that was meeting a few years ago, looking at the Highway State Route 152 improvement projects and also the 25101 corridor improvements near Santa Clara County. So that MOU was approved, and as part of that, there is a membership from the Board of Supervisors. So at your next meeting, we'll be asking the chair to appoint a member to that partnership through the Board of Supervisors.
Mary, do you know when they expect to have the first meeting?
We're looking at the end of October. So the Valley...
October. So the next meeting would be appropriate to assign or appoint.
I believe,
the,
yes.
Ad hoc or the representatives from...
Right.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then the final announcement on behalf of the Local Transportation Authority is that this year, once again, County Express will be offering a free shuttle bus to the county fair between Hollister and the fairgrounds. We'll be serving the fair Thursday through Sunday. So we invite the public to use that great service. And again, it's completely free of charge. So.
Thank you for that information. Hopefully residents take advantage of that, because I believe that it was successful. Last year was your first year?
Last year was actually our second year.
Your second year?
Yes,
okay.
But yeah, it's been very successful, and it's a great service. And the schedules are available on the County Express Facebook page and also on Bonito Link if people want to look that up.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary. Our next department head announcement is out of our RMA department. We have Brent Barnes here, Director of RMA. Give your announcement.
Madam Chair, good morning. Members of the board, good morning. This announcement is a little bit different. I've been asked this is not a project update. The project update will come to you for the first meeting in October, we believe. But I have been asked to present you with a quick update on the status of the Buena Vista subdivision final map, mostly so that the project can be on record as of this morning. Prior to recordation of the final map, the improvement plan and the bonding need to be tweaked a little bit, and we've been working with the developer on that. The developer has basically agreed to all of the conditions prepared by the county, and I just want to read those off to you so that they're in place here. The bonding amount includes a new level of improvement bond that was added by the City of Hollister that has been completed and agreed. There is a minor struggle with the definition between rain garden and what a rain garden is as opposed to a bioretention area. It's a matter of wordsmithing the agreement. We believe that that's going to be worked out momentarily, not an issue. And the final four things have all been agreed to by the developer. I just want to make sure that they're on the record as well. Description of the easements exactly as the county recorder of the county board wants them described. Street rights of way dedicated in fee. Dedication in fee for Line Street, that's the name, and the showing of the city and county boundary on the final map. Again, all sort of administrivia. The lender in this case wanted to make sure that those things were taken care of before recordation, and we will bring that back to you in October. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you, Brent. We have another department head announcement out of our Health and Human Services agency. We have Jim Writing Sort here to give you that announcement.
Good morning.
Good morning.
At a previous meeting, your board approved submission of a grant application to the Department of Substance Control for the purposes of securing funding to do an assessment of cleanup at the old hospital site and the quarry site. So I'm here to report today that in a letter dated September 14th, funding in the amount of $55,000 to $65,000 was approved, and that they will be getting back in touch with us on the next steps that we need to take.
Thank you, Jim. Congratulations on that. I know that's important. And this is just for an assessment. This grant will be more of an assessment.
This is just for assessment.
Okay.
To find out what needs to be done in the next steps. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. We're good to go.
Thank you, Jim. We also have one out of our library. We have our librarian, Nora Conte, here.
Good morning, board members. I have just a brief announcement for you. I'd like to let you know, first of all, the end results of our summer reading programs. This year, we partnered with Junior Giants. As some of you may be aware of, it's the first time the Junior Giants came to San Benito County. So all in all, there were about 12 partners that got together to make this happen. And the end results of our collaboration in getting our children to read and avoid the summer slump has been that there were close to 800 children that attended summer reading program at the library and also with Junior Giants, and that 588 of these children that signed up for summer reading completed their goals for the summer and the amount of books that they wanted to read. Board of Supervisors, thank you for helping the library and helping us to stay open, and we certainly hit a home run with Junior Giants for our children this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. That is great information.
Out of our clerk's office, we have Louis Valdez here. He wanted to give a quick, brief announcement.
Madam Chair and members of the board, good morning. I wanted to take a moment to introduce the new city clerk with the city of Hollister. It is Mr. Tom Graves. Mr. Graves comes from the city of San Jose, where he was the assistant city clerk, and has had a long, distinguished career. And he and I are aficionados of Mexican food, so I'm sure we're going to get along very, very well. So I wanted to take a moment and introduce Mr. Graves to the board and to the administration. Tom?
Good morning, Madam Chairperson, Supervisors. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you, Louis, for your kind invitation. I'm very excited about working at Hollister and downsizing the madness, so to speak. So I'm following in the footsteps of Jerry Johnson is an easy thing to do. She left the office in pristine condition, and I'm all set to go. So I just wanted to come by and say hello and introduce myself. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to San Benito County, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm sure we'll be crossing paths a lot in the next few years.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Louis. Yes, so one other last announcement. There was a comment earlier with regards to projects and different activities within our county and moving forward. With PV2 and Del Webb, I wanted to inform the board that on the agenda, November 3rd, 2015, we'll be hearing that item at our board meeting. That'll be our the Del Webb project. So I just wanted to inform the board that project's coming soon.
Okay, thank you.
Those are all the announcements that we have.
Okay, well, thank you so much for those. Board announcements, I will start with Supervisor Munzer.
None today.
Okay, Supervisor Batella.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. Anyhow, I'm happy that we have an update at the next meeting with the Highway 25 process to get it on the constraint list. I'm very satisfied with the work that's being done, and we're making great progress, and the rest of the board needs to hear how we're doing on that. In that meeting, during director's reports, I asked Caltrans to look into about the diversion of traffic that comes off of the 101 when it's plugged up every weekend. You just can't move north and south hardly at all during the weekend. I think a lot of us probably stay home because of it. And what's happening is that some of that traffic is bleeding off into small rural county roads, and I was able to take our RMA director out to tour that area, and so he's aware of it, and we're trying to do what we can for that neighborhood. It's to the point where there's some accidents, animals being ran over, besides the wear and tear on rural county roads, and so Caltrans agreed. After the meeting, gave me a call, and they're supposed to probably get back with our executive director at COG, Mary Gilbert, as well as our RMA director for appropriate staff, and have a meeting how we could alleviate some of that bleed over traffic into an area that really cannot handle it. And so I was very pleased with Caltrans and as them taking a problem very seriously, and we'll see what we could do. So that's all I have to report this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mine's a real simple one. I really want to thank our staff, Joe Paul, Ray, and other members of our staff, and our fellow supervisors. I think it was Supervisor Botello or yourself, Madam Chair, and SEIU for going to Sacramento about the ERAF money. Really want to thank you guys all. Thank you very much. We're getting closer and closer and closer, and That's going to be a big, big help to our employees. I mean, I'll say it on the record. I said it back then, and I'll say it today. My understanding is, if this goes through, we will work together with our employees to backfill something or an idea. So, once again, thank you, Madam Chair, for all those involved in moving this issue to the next step.
You're very welcome, and I believe that it was successful at the governor's level.
Yeah, my understanding is it's been through the Senate, through the Assembly, waiting on signature by the governor. So we still haven't got final word yet, but when we do, we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
No announcements, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have three. I attended the 9/11 memorial at the Veterans Memorial Building on that date, and it was a sad but very important reminder of the first responders and the big job that they have when there is an emergency. So I just want to give out, again, a special thanks to our fire department, to our law enforcement, our ambulance service, and others that are first responders. Anytime there is an emergency, they put their lives out on the line, and for that, we thank you for your every day that you do that for us. So I did attend the Pinocchio Valley rally at the courthouse to find out the outcome of the judge, whether he was going to uphold the decision that San Benito County had made. And he didn't decide the day of the rally, but a week later he did make an announcement, and that was on Thursday of last week, that yes, he did uphold the decision to move forward with the Pinocchio Valley and not hold it because of the litigation in regards to the Sierra Club and the Audubon Society. So congratulations to us for actually doing a very good job of making sure that we did all the groundwork to make sure that everything was protected, mitigated to the fullest extent. And the last thing, I want to thank the water agencies for their great presentation at San Juan Oaks last week. It was all in regards to water conservation, the drought issues, the county, San Benito County Water District, the Sunny Slope County Water District, and others were there to talk about the water situation in San Benito County and what we can do to make sure that we protect the resource that we have. They did a wonderful job, a lot of good information, so I want to thank them for that presentation. Supervisor Munzer was there with me, and I'm sure that he too felt that it was very necessary that we meet and that this becomes, I believe it's going to be on the CMAP cable channel, and it'll give more information to the community. So thank you. All right, we'll move on now to our consent agenda items, and I have been asked to pull item number 2 by Supervisor Munzer. Any other items to be pulled by the other supervisors? I am pulling item number 6 and item number 20. Anyone from the public would like to pull any of the items on the consent agenda? You may do so at this time. Okay, there being none other than the ones I mentioned, I will entertain a motion to approve the ones that are left.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Supervisor Munzer, item number 2.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. I see that in our regular meeting of July 8, 2014, we approved the same contract for the fiscal year, July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2015, for the same amount. And now here we're about to enter into the second quarter of this fiscal year, and we're approving the same contract for the same amount. I'm just wondering, have we been utilizing these services for this first quarter? Can we reduce the contract by $20,000 if we haven't used them, just for the 3 quarters?
These contracts are required to be in place because of a state mandate for therapeutic behavioral services. And so we have an array of different providers all in basically at the same amount of dollars. To date, we have rarely used TBS, but we put that amount in there as a placeholder in the event that we do. We're also monitored by the state on the number of TBS providers that we have available in the event that we need to use them. So I guess what I'm saying, in essence, the contract has not been used historically, I think maybe once a few years back, but we do have to have these in place for the purpose of fulfilling the mandate.
Okay, and did this just get forgotten, and that's why we're 3 months into the fiscal year before it comes before us?
I'm not aware that this same contract was approved previously. The contract was put before me by staff as just having arrived.
Okay. Like I said, I have trouble approving a contract 3 months into the fiscal year, you know, and it's going back to the beginning of the fiscal year, and the other thing I get, and is there any point or reason to do an RFP before we issue these contracts, when we issue them year in and year out?
Well, I don't think there is a point to doing an RFP. This particular contractor happens to be in Grass Valley. So regionally across the state of California, we have various locations where we know that group homes are used. And so we try to have providers in place in those regions where group homes may be used typically by this county. We are not the ones that make the placements to these group homes, so we have no deciding factor about the geographical location. Typically, those placements are made either as CPS placements, sometimes probation-related placements, sometimes special education-related placements. So I have no idea where they're going to occur, other than typically they usually occur in certain remote areas where they have group homes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, welcome. Any other questions? Okay, any comments from the public regarding this item? Okay, thank you all, and I'll bring it back for a decision.
I'll go ahead and move per staff recommendation.
Okay, there's a motion, and I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 6, I pulled that one, and I apologize to the clerk of the board, but I had very little time to go over some of these and to call you. But they're minor changes. All they are on page 92. I wasn't sure if Supervisor Botello, he's not mentioned on the top of the minutes, and I'm not sure if he was here or not, but there was a 5-0 vote, so I just want to correct those. Like I said, they're minor.
I did it incognito.
Did you do it incognito? Okay.
Good. Teach me
And
that.
then, and just a couple of spellings on some names. So they're very minor, and that's the only reason I'm pulling it. I will go over those 3 items with you, correct them. So unless there are other changes, I will go ahead. Or any discussion from the public on this item? Okay, if not, I'll bring it back and go ahead and make a motion to approve with the corrections that I will be going over with our clerk of the board. Okay, so I'll make that motion.
Second.
And there's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I also pulled item number 20, and the only reason I pulled that one, and let me go, I believe it just named the county as the state, and that just needs to be corrected. And let me see where that is at. Yeah, it names the county as San Benito County on the list of definitions, but for the state, it also names San Benito County, and it should be State of California as a definition. So that is the only change that I want to make sure is corrected. And let me just make sure that is page 367. State is not County of San Benito, but the State of California. Okay, so with that change, we can approve.
Madam Chair, since you pulled this, can I put our new RMA director on the hot seat and ask him a question?
You sure may.
That I'm sure he's going to have to turn to Joe to get the answer from.
That'll be easy.
Since this is dealing with John Smith Road, where are we on the realignment of the intersection of John Smith and Fairview Road project?
Mr. Horweedle. You made it so easy for me.
Actually, it has been a while since we have been making progress on that, and it's still tied up with the biotics issues. Our hope is now with Santana Ranch moving forward, they had obligations for dealing with, and I'm working off the top of my memory, tiger salamander habitat, and so we had talked with them about, as a part of what they were getting certified by the state of California for habitat, that we could go through and have a portion of that for our project. So Armand had been talking with the developer. Now that they're kind of off and running, they have been into the state for that certification process. They've told Armand that it was getting close, so we're still waiting for that to green light.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to be of help.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone from the public that would like to address the board on this item number 20? Okay, I'll bring it back for a decision, and I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve per staff recommendation with the one change of naming in the definitions the state as the state of California instead of the county of San Benito. Okay, so that's my motion.
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we will adjourn as the Board of Supervisors at this time and sit as the public authority for in-home supportive services. So I will do that at this time and open us up as public authority for in-home supportive services. So Human Resources, you could come up.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Georgia Cochran. What you have before you is just the approval of a recognition agreement, and what has happened, which periodically happens with sometimes labor organizations, is they're merging at this point. And so what they're doing is they're consolidating their representation of the SEIU in-home supportive services for the long-term care workers into one single union. If you will recall, back in about 2008, I think SEIU did a consolidation of all of their units into what we now work with as Local 521. This is just dealing with the in-home supportive services, moving into a single bargaining group of SEIU Local 2015. And this is something that requires your approval. We have discussed this with the IHSS representative. It generally comes through HHSA. We had the county's chief negotiator discuss this with the IHSS representative. There is no impact to the county, to the bargaining, or anything else. They will have new bylaws ultimately, but at this point, they can't do that until we recognize them.
And Georgia, will we then still continue to be the public authority for the IHSS? That does not change.
Yes. Nothing changes with respect to you acting as the public authority. For the most part, what you will notice is a letterhead change. Now, there are a lot of internal workings behind the union side with respect to how it affects them, but it does not affect the county with respect to our bargaining or anything else.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I will ask the public if you would like to address this item. Okay, there being none, I will bring it back for a decision from the board.
Move per staff recommendation.
Okay, there's a motion. Did I hear a second? Second. Oh, and there's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Georgia. We will now adjourn as the board of the IHSS Public Authority and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors with item number 27 on our regular agenda that has been moved up. Okay,
Thank you,
CEO
Ma-
Espinosa?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Item 27 on our regular agenda. This particular item has been discussed over a few times throughout the year. And at one of our prior meetings, your board requested staff to go back, do a little bit more homework, and provide a recommendation and to your board, really giving direction on which way the Homeless Service Center CDBG grant should be handled. It should be a 7-day a week, 365-day a year facility, 24 hours a day. Should it be just for a winter shelter? And a few other things. So staff met multiple times, and we have Jim Riding Sword, we have Brent Barnes here, and I believe we even have Joe. Joe's been working on this as well, to present to your board, kind of some background information that's been discussed. So I'm not sure who's going to start first. Joe? All right, Joe, you're up.
Good morning. So we did want to follow up on the last discussion with the board where there was some questions about what is the type of facility that we really wanted to operate. And the county staff has been off looking at a number of different options and really wanted to come back to the board with kind of some discrete, concrete direction that we'd like to pursue. As a part of doing that, we've actually gone and met with some operators over in Monterey County of shelters. Really spent time going through their financials and how they pay for their facilities, what their operating costs are, their business models, the different segments of shelters, and some ideas about how they operate them, because it really is a new territory for us here in San Bernardino County, so we wanted to go through and share that with the board. And that's part of the thought process we've been going through over the last several months as we've been working through this issue, is really thinking about how we would want to go and do this on a sustained basis. And that's the important part. We can build something. We want to make sure really we can sustain it over time, that it is an important service that operates well for our community. What we found with that is that having a nonprofit running these shelters is the norm. That is how up and down the state through the Bay Area these shelters are operating. They're not something that government agencies are operating. And so there are a number of good operators that are out there successfully doing this. We came away from that meeting and site visit really feeling much more confident of the ability of local providers being able to step into that type of arrangement and willingness to do that, which was an important thing for us. The other thing that we discovered was, as we have talked about the shelter and the service center, going back to the CDBG grant and the Homeless Coalition and the work that they've done, been a lot of different discussions about how this kind of facility should operate. Is it a winter-only shelter like we're running today up at the Migrant Center out at Southside? Is it something that is only building to provide services, basically an extension of what we do at HHSA, out at a different location that then brings other providers together? And as we looked at that, we really realized that once you start looking at creating a more ongoing winter shelter program, so if you took what we did and looked at what it takes to do that on a year-round basis, and you look at what's going on with services that we're providing at HHSA and at other folks like the Veterans Administration really want to provide in our community, it really kind of comes to the position where we were starting at, is bringing those together, that looking at the facility design, of having a winter shelter, the facilities, the beds that we provide with that, whether you run those year-round or so many months of the year, is the basic facility. And if we really wanted to have a permanent facility, it made sense to do that on a year-round basis. And then bringing services into that, we think, is really important, and that's what we've seen in looking at other counties and looking at the facility at San Luis Obispo is putting together and how they're matching up what's been going on here in the Bay Area. There's a synergy that happens with that. And so that really kind of reinforced in our minds as we were looking at it, the direction we were heading. There seemed to be a lot of merit to it. The one caveat to that is the visit we did to Monterey County and looking at their different facilities was the operator had a real strong commitment of moving people through the continuum of housing. A homeless shelter is just the first stage of how do you help somebody who is in a crisis mode for shelter and getting them back into the mainstream into regular traditional housing. And so it's an intervention tool. In it, there's kind of then stages to it. And so they have a real strong commitment to, as they bring people into the shelter, is they're there for a maximum of 90 days. And so there's a lot of services, and that's, again, going back why we think that's an important tie-in, to go and help those individuals get back on their feet, fill in the skills that they may be missing, help them with therapy, treatments they may need for dependencies, is to help get them back on that continuum, back into mainstream housing. And that was kind of a little bit of a pause for us because we were thinking this is a little bit more of a longer-term situation. People might be in the shelter longer than that. The other thing that they were impressed upon us is that the shelter during the daytime really needs to be focused on having those individuals get back into the community, that it does the community good for somebody to essentially, for want of a better term, being a warehouse, is that you really need to go through and be wrapping services. You need to be going through and dealing with their needs. And part of that is being back out in the community of looking for jobs, getting treatment and services. And to the extent those aren't happening in the building, it's getting them kind of molded back into and melded back into the community for that. And so the expectation that the operators have is that it's not, people hanging out during the day in the building, kind of waiting until, the next meal or whatever. It's really about a very aggressive case management of how to work with the individuals and getting them those services and into, that next stage of housing, that next stage of their development and kind of recovery and, filling the needs that they need individually. And so that's why our recommendation, we're actually now recommending, instead of being a 24/7, 365 kind of living environment, that there's the sheltering piece, there's the services piece, but we're calling it a modified 24-hour operation, is that we really do think that we need to kind of work with an operator in a service program about just not kind of putting people in a building and forget about it. It's about really kind of getting that aggressive 90 days back into the next stage, getting them on a day in, day out expectation that once we kind of help people start getting stabilized, the expectation is that very quickly they're going to be working back into the community about looking for work and job skills and personal development skills. So those are some of the recommendations we've got, and I guess as part of our recommendations to the board today, we would like to go through and kind of work our way through the individual pieces and find concurrence with the board on those because they start building on each other.
We have some questions,
Yeah.
Joe, as you move through. Go ahead, Supervisor Rivas.
Hey, Joe. So I really appreciate everything you're saying. It does sound fantastic. This you referred to it as a continuum of housing, and the problem I have with it is, although it sounds fantastic, is the reality. Here in San Benito County, it's beyond a shelter. When you talk about this. A continuum of housing, this next step. We don't have a next step. We were here arguing about this the lack of some transitional housing that we have here. So when we talk about next step for a homeless individual, we lack affordable housing here in San Benito County. So what is the next step if this is what we talk about? Because this is, not only a homeless issue, but this is a community problem that I perceive, that we've got to work with the city, towards. So what do you guys envision as this next step?
May I address that? Yes. San Benito County is part of a region of continuum of care for homeless programs, which includes San Benito County and Monterey County. So I met with the continuum of care about a week ago to affirm with them the plans that we were moving forward and the fact that this is a regional approach. And there is a commitment on the part of the continuum to work with San Benito County in terms of sharing resources as we move forward, with the hope that down the road we will develop additional resources that will add to the regional amount of resources that we have.
Supervisor Botello.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that ideally the center would be built with a staffing that would deal with the needs of these individuals and see what programs they qualify for, and that they, hopefully that these folks would run through the system within 90 days in which they're given help and found some sort of transitional type of arrangement, and it would be handled within the region. So we're not completely dependent on available affordable housing or low-income housing in San Bernardino County. It may be throughout the entire region. And the second part of that question is, the way I understand it, is that they're not, these folks, after getting their treatment during the day when staff is available at night, they're not just thrown out into the street again.
Yes. Let me see if I can answer the first question. Yes, that is, you are correct. It is a regional approach. That is the approach that we're directed to take, with both our federal and state agencies. We have worked within the region in terms of other activities such as the ESG grant that the Homeless Coalition has received in the past. The housing resources, I think that it's important for us to work on a regional basis on that, but also to begin to focus on what we can do in San Benito County. As we have reported to the board before, we've had discussions with local construction, nonprofit agencies, Community Services Development Corporation in Cheesba. They really want to try to work with us as we move down the road to help us develop additional resources. But I think we are encouraged by the commitment of the region for us to work together to try to resolve this issue.
Madam Chair, I think that's a lot more encouraging than I have been about this program for quite some time, hearing this. And I really believe that we have some more work to do as a county and a board, not only for the homeless center, but also develop programs such as a revolving fund to help people get into a unit, a shelter unit, whether it's a house or an apartment. And, as we are having growth in our county, we need affordability units built, and we also need to have funding available in which we could, help individuals find housing. And taking a regional approach, I think we have to consider that, and broaden our horizons a bit. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Supervisor De La Cruz.
I'm looking at the agenda. I'm trying to figure out what our limits are in terms of what's written on the agenda, and there's really very little limit on. It's unlimited. We can do what we want as long as we come in the future. Madam Chair, what I would like to do, because I have two different issues. I have a lot of questions for one direction and other questions for the other direction. So I'll make it real simple. What I'd like to do, I'd like to divide the item, and I would like to discuss and make a motion for the relocation of the camp away from South Street.
From where?
From Southside Road.
That is not on the agenda.
County Council?
Yeah, the agenda has 3 items. Then that is to proceed with a modified operation. It doesn't matter where it's going to be located, but it would be a modified 24-hour year-round shelter. And correct me if I'm wrong. And then the second part would be to seek a qualified regional operator of this facility. This is not about where it's going to be, just at how we're going to proceed to make this happen. And the third thing would be to seek a builder and to move forward with getting a qualified interested party for the building, and then, of course, with the appropriate CEQA
Right, I understand
review.
that. Without due respect, Madam Chair, I'd like to refer to the question to our county council.
And that is appropriate. But
County
that's
council?
the way I understood it. Council?
Yes, so it is agendized, at least on the agenda, rather broadly, as Supervisor De La Cruz indicates. However, I don't think it's completely open-ended. It is the use of the homeless service center community. It is then further defined in the AIT report about the 4 questions that are really in front of the board today, and relocation isn't one of them. So what I would suggest is, if there is support on the board for discussing the relocation of the homeless shelter, that perhaps the board the chair pull the board and see if that's the case. If so, this motion can be continued, and then that particular issue can be agendized for the next meeting.
Okay, so it would not be done today, but it would be continued with the addition of that discussion?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, I would like to call a point of order in which this board has decided where that location was to be. That's a done deal. That's down the road already.
Yeah, and
we
I have
already decided on Southside Road and at the former convalescent hospital.
And I have to agree with Supervisor Botello. That decision was made long ago. The discussion was held, and the decision was made by the Board of Supervisors. So I do not, myself, want to put it on the agenda for further discussion as to location.
Madam Chair, as the opposing vote on that deal, if I have 2 other supervisors that would like to revisit that issue, I would support that motion.
And that would be to bring it back for
Bring it back.
location?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we know we have 2 that are definite on that we made, the decision was made. Supervisor Rivas, it appears that you were the only one.
All right.
that can.
I'm not often in this position. I do agree that this is a decision that was made. However, I have come for full circle and believe that the public vetting process should have been more thorough. And so I have no problem revisiting. I certainly want to hear from the audience here today to see what they have to say. Okay. But I think that that in the interest of transparency, that sure, why not?
Okay. Well, it looks like the board has spoken 3-2 to bring it back. So it will not be in discussion today, but we will bring it back, continue this item. We'll continue with the things that are on the agenda, but we will add that portion to the next to the continuance of the agenda item. And that'll come back at the next board meeting on October, I believe it is the
6th.
The 6th? Okay.
Madam Chair.
And that'll give the audience an opportunity, the public an opportunity to address the board on the location.
Madam Chair, if I might, the location is an appropriate conversation in the context of all of these other things. We would request that the entire item be moved to the next agenda so that it can be done in logical order among the 4 items that are already before you.
Very well. Okay.
One other point, if I may. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Let me have him finish the point, and then we'll.
Yeah, I just want, after he's done,
Okay, very good.
I just want to remind the board that we're in the early part of updating the housing element of the general plan. And so there will be there'll be an opportunity for you and the public to review that. And then following that, we intend to do an implementation program behind that. So there'll be lots of conversation about all of these issues.
Okay, very good. So there'll be
Madam Chair.
opportunity again.
I agree with Brent. However, if we are going to get into a more complex discussion, which I think this is, I'm not certain that it will all be done by your next meeting. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Jim, do you recommend, because we have these items on the agenda, to discuss them if there's any questions, to do that now so that perhaps if there are any questions or concerns, you can bring them back at the next meeting. Because I certainly have some comments that I would like to make.
Well, it seems to me with County Council's concurrence, the board has an item on the agenda that can be discussed, and then you can take action as to what you want to do in terms of approving, not approving, or moving it to another time, I think. Am I right, Matt?
Well, I guess for myself, the clarification is that this does not necessarily pertain to location so much as the method of how we're going to run our homeless services. So if we decide to, let's say, have it in another location, we can still move forward with the operation type that we're.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that was part of why we structured it the way we did, is that we do think it's really important for us to get out into the marketplace to start looking for an operator. Because from a design standpoint, we met with the architect yesterday, there's some big decisions we need to make of how to stay within budget. And part of that is going to be really critical, tied to how an operator would go through and use the building to deliver services. And so we think being able to go out and start soliciting for an operator and qualifications, how successful operators operate, to bring somebody in sooner rather than later. So we'd like to get moving with that.
Okay.
And I think the board discussion about, the type of facility, is this a modified 24-hour? Is it only a service facility? That, I think, if we can find closure on some of that, even today, would really help us move this project forward, because we are starting to look at the back end of the CDBG grant, that we're going to need to actually get something built in a certain time frame. Regardless of site, there's decisions that lead into that are time critical.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Supervisor Munzer?
Madam Chair, I just want to point out that I think most of the audience that are here for this item are here to discuss the site, and apparently that's been taken off the table. I mean, they still have a right to get up and speak, but and many of them have taken off from work, and there's been numerous requests that we would have a special meeting in the evening so more of their neighbors could attend. And I'm just asking if the board would be okay with having a special meeting in the evening, maybe the evening of the 6th, to discuss this item in the site, and possibly they will hold their comments until that date, and then discuss it then.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. Supervisor Patella?
Well, whatever we tell you today, we'll probably change our mind tomorrow. And, this is an issue that I would like to put behind us. We're wasting time. There's people that need help. And I want to get to it. And we have a room full of people, regardless where we're put it. We only have 1 or 2 county sites that we own, and that is even a possibility. We know that the Flynn Road is, not very feasible. There's a ton of opposition for that, and we have the hospital site, which we decided on. But if we're to go back and revisit this, now we're going right back to square one, wasting time, putting this grant at jeopardy, and not helping the people that we need to help. And I don't know. We should have a special meeting, get this thing going as quick as possible, maybe not wait to the 6th, and get staff doing their job.
And I agree with you, Supervisor Patella. We do need to. There are issues that are coming up every single day with these folks that are homeless, and obviously, this board gave the direction that we needed to do something. And this grant is now before us, and the clock is running. So maybe a special meeting would be appropriate before October the 6th. And if we can look at our calendars, maybe we can continue only this item in the evening to give the folks an opportunity to be here, express their concerns and their views. So if we can look at our calendars, I would like to recommend that we do this on the evening of the 29th
Sounds good.
of September, which would be a week from today.
Sounds good.
I'll make the motion to continue the item to the 29th in the evening. I guess would 7 o'clock or 6:30 be all right?
7
would be great. 7? To 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay, let's put it on for the 29th. Do we have a consensus from the Board of Supervisors?
I got a question, Madam.
Okay, you're second
Yes,
that motion.
I'll support
Okay,
it.
now let's discuss it.
Jim, we could discuss issues right now, right? And I will recommend, and I support Jim's concept that because what I've been hearing is that, the biggest issue that's dividing this, I guess, this grant is, if it's temporary, if it's overnight. So if we, the board, can issue a position today, Madam Chair, and we can do it today, let's do that today.
Okay, and we will continue the item only on the part of location for the 29th at 7 p.m. here in these chambers. But we will continue discussing today the items that are before us for the decisions on items, agenda item 27 for items 1 through 4.
And that's how I amend my motion, is to revisit the location of the homeless center.
Okay.
And
on to the 29th.
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And amend my second. My second.
Okay. Is that clear, Council? Are we okay to proceed?
So, as I understand it, the board's going to go forward and discuss and provide some direction to staff in accordance with the item agendized today. Yes. On the 29th of September, there'll be a special meeting at 7 p.m. at which we'll, at that time, discuss whatever the board wants to agendize or whatever gets agendized. But the one thing that will be on there on the 29th is the location, discussion about the location of the homeless shelter.
Okay. Very good.
And may I just ask for clarification? It would seem to me if we're going to come back and talk about location, we need to do a review of all the locations that have been considered so that the board can make a decision in a context.
And I have to agree with that, that it isn't just about the South Side site, but if there are other opportunities bring them all forward so that anybody that lives in the location or near these sites can have an opportunity for discussion. Clerk of the Board?
For the clarification of the record, is it reconsideration of the previous decision, or is it going to be a new question that will be heard on the evening of the 29th regarding the location?
I believe it's a new question because we will be considering other sites other than the South Side location. Okay? Clear?
Clear.
All right, very good. So then, pardon?
Do we take a vote?
We haven't taken a vote. Is there any other discussion? I want to ask also because there is a motion from the public. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 to meet for a special meeting on the 29th of September at 7 p.m. here in these chambers regarding the homeless locations. All right, so we'll continue then with the first part of it. Let's take these separate, and we'll do number 1 first, and that is to proceed with a modified 24-hour year-round shelter operation concept, and to seek. I'm sorry, that would be the only thing in item number 1. Anybody from the public that would like to address the board on only this particular section of this agenda item? Okay, Marty?
Fast question because I'm getting a little lost.
I can't say that I blame you, Marty. I know that we are kind of moving back and forth, but I think we're
I hope
clear
I'm not
up
out
here.
of order because I don't know if I'm addressing 1, 2, 3, or 4. So maybe I just get a clarification. Will this portion of the discussion also decide whether this is a family operation or a men's only operation? Was I not supposed to ask that?
No, that's
I'm
fine.
sorry. Or am I in the wrong one? That's all. So
No, Marty, I think
Thank
you have a valid question, but I don't believe that is the discussion here today for what the makeup of the facility residence is going to be. Jim?
I think that's correct. I think what we'll do, if the board gives direction, is we'll go and we'll look at those options, and at some point we'll come back to the board and say, we've looked at these options, and here's what we are recommending as the best option in terms of construction and what the use will be.
All right, but for now, we're proceeding with a modified 24-hour year-round shelter operation that Joe went through and what we expect this to be. So anybody else from the public in regards to this? Okay, I'll bring it back for a decision then. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Madam Chair, I'm going to support the 24-hour operation concept. As long as general fund money is not being as the number one. I really do have an issue with that. If it's not general fund money and you're going to bring in an outside operations and it's grant money, I'm for it, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'll support it.
All right. So is that your motion?
Well, I'm going to wait for my fellow supervisors.
Okay. Any other questions? Or?
The only comment I have is I'm lukewarm on this modified 24-hour because on paper it's just short of details, so I don't think I can support it. Especially if you take all these three actions, they all work together. If we have the first action is to have this modified 24-hour shelter, but if we can't, what happens if we can't find a qualified regional homeless, operator? Then it all kind of falls apart. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I have to confess, I was hung up even when Joe was making his presentation on site. So can you explain what you mean by a modified 24-hour operation as opposed to just a 24-hour operation?
Sure. And I think it's a little bit of setting goal as opposed to exactly limiting it. So I did want to also follow up with you, Supervisor Rivas, on your points. But it's focused that the goal is to not just get somebody off the streets and take them out of sight and kind of, I use the term that people may be offended with, warehousing them. This is really about how to go through and provide shelter, provide services, but recognizing that some of what the individuals
what's
need.
being modified is not the 24 hours, it's the programs is being modified.
That is a part of the 24-hour piece. I guess the kind of the hook to that is an expectation that individuals that are coming into the shelter and receiving services are also have an expectation to be during the day out of the shelter looking for jobs, looking for some of the trainings, that there's case management that's happening. And it's, they're not just kicking them out, but it is a part of an expectation that you're not just going to go sit in your room or in the day room inside the shelter until 90 days. Okay. There's an active engagement of also getting out of the building and kind of doing work to go and help solve the problem.
Thank you, Joe.
Supervisor Batella.
Yeah, and I just want to understand. During the day, you're doing all those things, and that's what needs to be done. At night, what do? Kick them out, and they're living down there in the river again, or is that the whole idea of this?
The 24-hour then would allow them to be at the facility to sleep and shower and get rest,
Clean
so that the next day they start again with programs and job training, education, whatever their specific
tailored to that individual, and that's the part of why the operator is really critical, is really making sure that they're not just really counting numbers, they're really providing services to those individuals to help them succeed and get back into the mainstream.
And I think, I've had some discussions with Director Riding Sword, is that there are, that's how it's being done in our neighboring counties. And there are qualified operators. We certainly have to address it as a community ourselves and support, this effort. All of us do. And, I think that we could get someone qualified to help do this, especially if the track record is already established. So, but we need the facility.
But I think for now, the decision would be, do we want this 24-hour year-round, but with programs, wraparound services tied into it, so it's not just a sleeping warehousing folks. So, any other questions, Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, Madam Chair, and this is for the public. It's very important that at the end of the day, once the dust is cleared and we decide where to go, I'm going to support the 24-hour and ensure there's a facility attached to it. It's not going to be at 24 hours without a facility. It has to be together, both hand in hand.
That's the only way it can work.
That's the only way it can work.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the first item, and that's to proceed with a modified 24-hour year-round shelter operation concept. Yes, sir. That's my motion. Let me see if there's a second.
I'll second it.
And then further discussion.
If just for the benefit of staff, for Supervisor Rivas, if you're concerned about the modified, is it really that services and shelter should not belong together, or it's more that the goal to just make sure that absent anything, we're full wraparound?
Yeah, I think shelter is certainly an important component, but I think emphasis needs to be on the services that we can provide. But I just think that, there's not enough information for me to make a decision. I want to see facts. I want to see, report. I want to have a concrete report that says, hey, this is the analysis and how it works in this county, and all I have is a 2-paragraph AIT, and it just doesn't cut it for me. I mean, that's why I can't support this.
Thank you.
And we're supporting the idea. That idea, it's a concept. And that idea, if we're saying, yes, please move forward with this concept, then our staff will come back and say, this is the way this concept is going to work. We're going to have, on these days, a counselor for this. We're going to have Gavilan College there. We're going to have behavioral health. All of that will be laid out, but all we're doing is approving the idea that we want programs in this 24-hour modified operation. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, 4-1.
Thank you.
Item number 2, and that is to seek a qualified regional homeless services organization to negotiate a contract for the operations of a homeless service center. And this would go back to somebody that evidence-based, they have the quality, the qualifications, the experience on running such a concept.
Correct.
Anybody from the audience would like to address the board on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back for questions. Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I think that's where some of the details that Supervisor Rivas is looking for will come into play when we identify an operator and what they offer and their past experiences, and that's where we'll be able to get a lot of that information. And so I'm supportive of this to seek, and hopefully we have more than one.
I do too.
Operator out there that will bid on this and provide some sort of qualifications to us, and we make a decision and have some options on this. So I'll make a motion, if there's no further discussion, to seek a qualified regional homeless service organization to negotiate a contract for operations of a homeless center.
Okay, that's your motion. Is there a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 4-1.
Just
Okay.
can't get your vote.
Okay, number 3, and that is to once we select an operator, and that is we coordinate with this operator to seek a qualified builder with compliance with the Public Contracts Code. So this operator will be somebody that has enough experience to recommend the contract for a qualified builder.
Yes, we feel it's important that as we're going through the selection process, once we've picked a site, kind of whatever comes out from that, and we've worked down the scope, that it's really important that the builder that gets picked is somebody that also that we have the benefit of the operator in helping putting specs, because part of building these types of buildings, there is a lot of wear and tear that goes through. You really need to think about operating cost when you're doing capital design. You don't want to trade off capital dollars and have a forever operating cost. So we do think it's important to have an operator's perspective at the table as we're doing the plans and specs and actually then picking the builder to build this.
And we have some good models out there already, so hopefully this...
Yeah, there's a lot of good firms, as Jim talked about, that are already in this environment that build these types of facilities, and so we think we'll get some good competitive work, firms coming in competing for this.
Okay. Any comments from the public on this particular item, and that's to coordinate with the operator to seek a qualified builder?
Thank you, Marty Richmond again. I think it's very important, and maybe this is the wrong stage, but it's obvious you need a qualified builder. I don't think anybody can argue. I don't know what the discussion is. But I think it's very important to talk about the design, and we're not going to design it here at the podium, but some principles about the design that you should incorporate no matter where it ends up, concerning how it looks in the neighborhood it's at, how it sits in relationship to other things in the neighborhood it's at, whether they be residential or commercial, and so on and so forth, because that's going to be your initial visual and, in many cases, mitigation impacts on the neighborhood where it's at. So I don't know where that goes in, because I don't know who's going to be on the design committee, but I would like to see something to that effect at the proper time, in the proper place, but a statement, although it may become obvious, sometimes the obvious is overlooked, to that effect, so that it becomes a major item on the checklist of we need places that are easily repaired, easily maintained, will stand up to the wear and tear it's going to get, will look correct in the neighborhood, will mitigate the sound we expect. If it's a 24-hour operation, we'll have the proper screening and so on and so forth. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Marty. You're welcome. And I agree. And those things will come back before this board as the discussion, continues. So we would be making decisions on the actual architectural part of it.
Correct. That's one of the things. We've engaged an architect to help with basic programming, to help us figure out scope to budget. But the part of our discussion with them yesterday was, wherever it's going to go is how we're going to go through and design the building so that, it actually fits with where it's at. So that is an important consideration, as Marty noted.
Okay. Anybody else from the public on this item number 3? Okay, Ann, please.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak, Ann Ross. I just wanted to point out to the people in the group and to the board, addressing the board, that and a reminder that the committee that's been working on the homeless shelter has been dedicated to thinking about design and some of the concerns from the other speakers, including Marty, that it isn't under control, that things haven't been considered, that there's a lot of questions left. I'm not so sure that all of the board maybe has looked at what's been done. Maybe it hasn't been given to you in a report, but Madam Chair sits on the committee, and they have batted it around and thought about it. We had a day-long retreat to talk about design and architecture. The people who are working on the committee are dedicated to providing suggestions for how families would be accommodated, how people with drug addictions would be accommodated in each of the cases. So I just want to say, to assure those that are not fully supportive of everything that's been done, because they don't have the information with them today, Supervisor Rivas, that there is everything being considered, and it's a great group of people who are thinking of everything.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate your comments. Supervisor Rivas?
I do appreciate the comments. Not that I'm not informed, it's just I don't support the philosophy behind some of the decisions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a decision on number 3, and that's to coordinate with a selected operator to seek a qualified builder.
I have a question to probably Joe in the fact that hypothetically, come the 29th, this board could maybe change the location consideration. Are we setting ourselves up to doing some work with a qualified builder and changing the location, that would be amendment number 1 and costing us more money?
No, that is a part of the work we're doing with the architect right now is on programming. They have looked at Southside to make sure that the program would fit. They had looked at some other sites to see if it fit. But really our focus right now is staying within the CDBG grant, which was the $1.5 million. We're putting a budget of about 1.2, 1.3 for actual hard and soft costs to go build the facility and get it up and running. So we're testing. That's really what the architect's doing right now, is how to stay within the 1.3 million so we don't use general fund dollars to go through what size building can we build, and then what services, number of people can we accommodate with that. So that's the test fit scope. So that works on any property.
Oh, all right, because that's what I want to do, is just avoid extra costs that we shouldn't be incurring. And then hopefully this board could make a decision on a site and stick to it. And sometimes you got to make people upset. No matter what we do, we're going to accomplish that. I guarantee you that. And but anyhow, I could support. We got to get this program going. That's my point.
Thank you, Supervisor Botello. No other comments from the public, so we'll make a decision here for item number 3. You may come up.
I am a resident, in the proposed location right now, and I hear all this great stuff that you guys done, and thank you, like for the children in the library and stuff, so on. But I'm just wondering about, in the location, in concern of it's actually, if they have looked into, and I appreciate everybody who's helping into this, have they really looked into, that the proposed shelter is being right behind, or actually literally on our backyards?
You know what? That item is going to be on. That's not for today's discussion. That'll be for the 29th of September. Right now, we're simply discussing item number 3, and that is for a qualified builder selected by the operator.
And my question is this qualified builder selector, are they going to look into that? Because if it is, whatever location it is, whether it's there or not, are they going to consider, their surroundings deeply, like for, safety issues and so on?
Okay, well, thank you, and we'll have Joe answer that question on the mic.
And yes. So, it's just my concern as the question that I had is really that my concern it's really literally behind our backyards, and, not so much about the location. We're all for, to help homeless people. It's just the actual, what it should be, and if our safety decisions are going to be considered. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Thank you. Yes,
Madam
sir.
Chair, before Joe answers that, I think the speaker brings up a valid comment. Marty touched on it. Are we at some point, again, whatever site is picked, there's going to be issues with the site. Are we going to see what the security part of the building is going to look like? Would that come before us? Would the committee be talking about that? Would that come before this full board so that we can see it? And I think that is important.
Yeah, and I have to reiterate that, yes, the speaker, thank you so much, because that is, you were talking more about the design of the building, and would it be, a safe, designed in a way that it would be safe for no matter what surrounding it's at. So, Joe, if you could answer that question.
That is, so security is a really important issue for facilities like this. And so when we looked at the facilities in Monterey, that's one of the questions we talked about, because they have different facilities for different groups, and they treat each one differently because the issues are different. One is for battered women, and so that, it's very different issues that they deal with versus for like a men's shelter. But even with that, they deal with the issues about overall security of the neighborhood, what's going on, operations plans, the control of when people are allowed to come in and out of the building. So when we presented to the Homeless Coalition, the committee, the architect on the San Luis Obispo facility. They spent a lot of time talking about how individuals come check into the facility, how they're allowed to go in and out, can you leave in the middle of the night, those type of things, house rules. So that is partly why we really want to bring an operator in, because a lot of that really comes down to the operations of the facility. There's definitely physical things you need to think about. Part of our discussion yesterday with the architect, looking at Southside and just programming, and was thinking about if a building goes on the property, 4,000-foot building's about what we can afford. Where's the right place to put it, and how does that relate to people coming to the site? How do you go through and deal with it? If there are people coming during the day for services, because you may have people only come there for services and not stay overnight. You have people there for overnight with services. How do you go through and provide that security even between those two populations? If you have families and then men's shelter, women's shelter, how do you deal with the security needs for families that are going to feel comfortable staying there? So it is a foundational design issue for these facilities. So I think as a part of the discussion on the site, regardless of what site gets picked, that's a foundational thing to the design itself, that as we bring forward actual concept plans, I think having that conversation at the neighborhood, wherever this facility is, whether it's Southside or somewhere else, is going to be important. And I think there'll be more to come as we work through. And ultimately coming to the board as we go through and approve plans and specs to go out to bid. That's going to be part of us talking with the board about how do we build something that, it makes sense in operations over the long term. So, that's a foundational. The issues also that as we go through and look at sites, that is part of the thing of thinking about that Marty raised and the speaker raised of, privacy issues, how well does it fit into the neighborhood, and whether that's architecture, building placement, how the parking fits, where windows are located. That was, again, part of our conversation yesterday with the architect, because there's certain decisions, where you put the building makes sense from a security standpoint of people coming, but you also need to be respectful of what's around it. And, is it a single story? Is it two-story? How much landscape buffers? And again, regardless of site, that's the kinds of things that we're going to have to work our way through. And we're already talking with the architect about to make sure, they're thinking about, the same things.
Okay, so to answer the questions and the concerns, the public safety, it's not just about designing it for programs, but also for the safety of the surrounding neighbors and the safety of the residents.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so thank you. All right, so any other questions from the board? Okay. Oh, we have another comment. Please come up.
Well, my question here is the facility. How many people is it going to house? You're saying it's going to be year-round. If it is, the safety. The grant, I have a lot of questions, but the grant is another thing. How long is it going to last?
You have to
after the grant
the board
after the grant is done, also, where is the money going to be coming from to continue, the cost of it and the maintenance of it? Is law enforcement also going to get part of that grant, part of the money, so that safety is there? I mean, I hear a lot of, law enforcement getting cut all the time. I mean, we used to see them over there all the time, especially in the sheriff's department. Now we see them less and less. So only when they go put gas is when we see them go by. So, I mean, that's the truth. Where is all this money going to come from? How long is the grant? Are you going to continue getting grants? I mean, as far as I know, grants do end. How much is it going to cost the community? And why isn't more of the Latino community being informed about this? I've been at the St. Benedict Church at a festivity, and I just went around asking, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? They're like, we haven't been informed. I go, well, it's been out in the freelance. We don't buy the freelance. Why isn't it out in the public? Who's making the decision? Only board members, or are you in the seat representing the community? Shouldn't the community be part of this? I have a lot of questions, and it could go on and on all night, but I'm not here. The main thing is money. Where is that money going to come from, and who is going to get part of that money, part of that grant?
Well, thank you for your questions, and I think what I'd like to do with your question is that, Jim, when we have our meeting on the 7th, if you could start, we can start off the meeting with maybe a little history of where the money came from, how much money it is, and kind of a breakdown of how much is going to the building, how much for programs with the initial grant, and then the plan for sustainability as well. So, okay, so those will be addressed on September the 29th. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Anybody else from the public? If you could come up, please.
I got some of the safety issues. This project is really good. I support it, but now where they gonna try to put it on, because there's a curve and that there's a lot of traffic. So if we trying to protect them, we can put in dangers because they walk all day, all night, and that's gonna be one, a safety. Another one. The kids, there's 2 schools between 1 mile, Southside and Lat Lane. So the government protect the kids, but we don't. We don't think about that, okay? We have to see all the issues and take that right decision because they need help. They need that second opportunity. That's why I support it. But that place is too far from the health department and all that services.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. That is the purpose for the meeting on the 7th. Right now, we're talking more about the contract for qualified building.
Yeah, that building is not qualified for that, for my view. But we're going to find the best place for them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Yes,
Chair,
CEO Espinosa.
Yeah, just a correction there. You said 7th. It's September the 29th.
29th,
at 7,
I am so sorry.
At 7 p.m.,
At
just
7
for
p.m.
clarity.
I want to say it over and over again.
Thank you.
September 29th. September 29th. It's on a.
The 7th at 29.
It's a Tuesday.
Wait a minute, football day. Oh, no.
A week from today. It is a Tuesday, a week from today, the 29th of September at 7 p.m. here at this building. Okay. Anybody else from the public?
No.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a decision on item number 3. And that's to coordinate with the selected operator to seek a qualified builder.
I'll make that motion to coordinate with a selected operator for a qualified builder under the compliance of the Public Contracts Code.
Okay.
Second, Madam Chair.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 4-1. And the last one is to proceed with appropriate CEQA review for the concept. The concept is the idea that we just voted on, and to go forward with the CEQA review.
Right. And so this one, based on the board's action to go and talk about a site, really, I think if there's issues that the board wants to make sure that we're addressing in the CEQA process and for the community, I think it's good to talk about today. But really, it's going to need to follow the decision, are we staying at Southside or are we going to another location? Because I can't do CEQA for a project if the site's still moving around.
Okay, because it has to be unique to where you're putting it, what's there.
Correct.
What is the surrounding properties, whether it be people or ag or. Yeah. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and put this and continue this one.
Well, what I would ask is use it as essentially as a scoping discussion. Are there things? So let me go through and kind of frame this for you. So under the California Environmental Quality Act, we will go through and look at the site and a proposed project. So the discussion today is helpful with that to help us frame what type of facility and how to think about the operations. But we will look at issues such as noise, traffic, security issues. We'll go through and talk about any site's particular issues. Is it in a floodplain? Is it got correct zoning? Those types of issues. So, pretty normal what the board is used to seeing. So from the community standpoint, if there's issues you want to make sure that, we're addressing in this process, either today or the meeting on the 27th,
No,
29th
the
at 7.
29th.
I know I'm going to be on the East Coast, so it works either way.
Yeah.
Brenton's got it. We'll go through and take those comments and weave into the CEQA process as we get running.
Okay, so I think this would be then appropriate for the 29th, is to continue this item for then, so that if there is a change in location, you will know
Responsive to that.
this has to be specific to the location. Okay, Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So are we doing a full-blown CEQA process, or are we going to try to do this on a negative deck?
Well, we're going to do a full-blown CEQA process, whichever is the appropriate vehicle. So whether that's a negative declaration, which is my expectation, whether it's an exemption, which might be possible, but probably not likely, or as an EIR, which I would find highly doubtful. But we'll go and do the full CEQA process. The county is very committed to making sure we do a complete analysis, kind of analyze everything, be very transparent around that, and share that with the public.
And there's not a short form EIR, right? Once you start the EIR, it's a full-blown $100,000, $200,000. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any comments from the public on item number 4, which we are going to bring back at a later date? Ann, please come up.
I realize I seem to be on the other side of this. I just want to commend the board and thank you, but it's generous of you to have a meeting on the 29th. I believe this topic has been reviewed it could have been reviewed by the public over the last year and a half. And those who have a lot of questions can simply call and ask the planning department to give some information, or the builders. The department head, Mr. Whitingsworth, has been working diligently to make sure everything's been done as well as the planning department. I don't understand the public's comments, and I would like to reiterate the fact that the board has done an excellent job at keeping at least this on the table and talking. I think we're moving too slowly, but that's now not the board's concern, it's not their fault that that we're not moving forward. I see the public as being not doing their job to join in, be informed, read the paper, and find out what's going on. And don't come in here and complain unless you know what you're talking about. Get the information first. This isn't the place where you start saying what's going on. Thank you, guys. I think it's a great idea to have a September 29th meeting at 7 p.m. there.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate it. Linda, if you could come up, please. Yes.
Good morning.
Yeah, she did.
I'm Linda Lampe. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm a homeless advocate here in San Benito County in the city of Hollister. I couldn't be more proud of the team of people that's on the board trying to bring just common decency to our friends who are in need. How many of you know a homeless person?
Linda, you have to address the board,
I'm
please.
sorry. I want to know how many people in the audience actually know a homeless person. Have you ever sat down and had lunch with them? Yes. Have you ever taken them home with you? Yes. Have you ever understood their hopes and dreams and their brokenness? What we're planning on doing for this county should be something that could be a beacon to many other communities. We have a decision to make. Are we going to be a difference maker in people's lives? Are we going to try to crush those who are trying to come out of the needs that they have? With the support of this community and with this 24-hour facility, the way it's been discussed, can make a major impact, not only in the lives of the folks who are homeless, but their lives and our lives. In the past 18 months, my husband and I, Patrick Lampe, have helped 51 people get off the streets and either be gainfully employed, long-term drug rehabilitation. One gentleman is in the Maybe Center. He would have died out there. If we can do that with the support of a few of our neighbors and friends, think what we can do as a community together with these resources. I beg of you. Now, when you come to this meeting on the 29th, think about, what are you afraid of? The people that have fears, are they real? Are they confirmed? Are they just boogie monsters? And you know, as far as not being informed, the newspaper is there. There's information out there. And the Latino community, we should not be divided. It's all the community But I know that about 87% of the people that we serve and reach out through our ministry are Latino people. So we are reaching the Latino community. We're reaching the families. Think about what you're afraid of. Why are you afraid? Address those fears before you come. Are they real? And I thank you all very much for moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public, please come up. We have a gentleman that is coming up first. I asked him to come up first, and then you may come up second.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Chair.
Morning.
I am Jeffrey Anyene. I'm an Anglican priest and a metallurgical and materials engineer by profession. But I have been in the development world for over 25 years, down there in my country, in Nigeria. I'm really glad about the things that we're talking about here today. I'm excited about it. But I just want to encourage us that if we're doing what we're doing, we have to do it maybe pretty fast. Because I don't know how it looks like, but I know for projects, when a funding is provided, there is a time limit tagged to it. I came into this country maybe not too long. When I came in, I heard about this money that is around hanging about. And the year is almost drawing to an end, and it has not been utilized. Actually, it's a gainful project for our community. I feel too sorry and too bad to see that in societies like here in America, that we still have people who are homeless. And government has decided to provide for them, but maybe bureaucracies and bottlenecks has kept it lingering all this while till this time around. This is September. I don't know if we have to go by this, the pace at which we are going. Maybe that project may never get realized in a quick gospel time. So I'm thinking that all we need to do is just to put our hearts together, put our minds together. We have agreed to do this project, make a headway, and carry it on to help our people. I don't believe that in this type of society, America, with the level of wealth it has, should have the homeless out there in the society. It is heartbreaking to me. It is very shocking to me when I noticed it. For the little time I have been here, I have come in contact, just like Linda Lampe said, in contact with so many homeless. I have contributed my quota too, and I'm yet ready to do more. And I think I want to call upon each and every one of us to rise up to this challenge. We all live in our homes. We have pleasant homes, maybe comfortable homes, to make sure that we provide for these ones. Delay could be dangerous. The earlier we do things, the better for us. I was coming to this place with the hope that when I come, everybody I see in the street will live comfortably. It's an embarrassment to me. And I believe that this is a very good forum. That since we have decided to do this, this is a very good thought. Let us please carry it out adequately and in time. It will be a very good thing that this thing was done in our own time. And posterity will record it for good. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the item that we're on is about the CEQA review. We've decided that that is going to come back at a later time. So if you want to talk about the CEQA review, you're welcome to come up. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and have you come back on the 29th to discuss location. So anybody else from the public regarding the CEQA review? Okay.
Madam Chair, I have
yes.
to make a comment. I want to thank everyone that is here because this is why I decided to run for office, is to make some decisions and to help people. And regardless our frustration from our staff that this is a decision that's been done and been made, you know, as a supervisor and in my observations in my time on this board, is we can always do a better job in informing the public of decisions that we make. So often, I understand this is a board of supervisors. We meet at 9 a.m. People work. People work full time. I work full time as well. And I understand the challenges of you people coming here to our meetings. And so for that, I want to thank you for being here. And, certainly many of the times when we make our decisions, we do it in a room that is not full. And so certainly when we did make this original, this decision, it was to a room of staff members. And certainly we could have done a better job. I'm certain of it. We could have done a better job of reaching out to the people that were going to be adversely impacted by the location of this site. And so certainly I want to thank you for being here. And I can tell you that in the future, we need to do a better job of reaching our local residents because we work on behalf of you. And so I want to thank you for being here. And I'm embarrassed by some comments that were made by our staff. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would like to make a comment. Once this facility is built, it's going to be there basically forever. And I want to make sure that it is in the right site to do the job that we need it to do. Wherever it goes, there's going to be issues, probably with the neighbors, but one of the reasons that I kind of missed Joe's presentation about the modified 24 hours, because I was questioning, if we did a facility on the Southside Road site, would that be the best site for the people that are utilizing the services to get out and find work from that site? Is that the best site for them to get out and take advantage of the programs that the county wants to implement? And I was really questioning that. And because of that, I kind of missed a little bit of what he was saying. So I want to end up with a site that will serve this part of our community to the best of our abilities. And that is what I'm hoping that we can accomplish on the 29th. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Supervisor Patello and then Supervisor De La Cruz.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues on the board. I think they articulated that very well. I appreciate the people that probably have a difference of opinion from my position right now coming and expressing themselves. It's important to us. I certainly wish we've had some of those comments earlier, of course, to address some of those concerns and fears and have a little bit a better insight as far as what we envision this center to be. And because I certainly see it as being a controlled facility. We're not going to have people just wandering around on the streets and camping out in your backyards. I mean, these people are coming in, getting a service, and hopefully we'll replace them where they could become productive citizens again, for our community. I appreciate the homeless advocates that also came up and spoke, and the folks that are working on this committee. Without their help, this whole program is not going to be viable. And there's been a lot of work that's been done to this point, and it's been for not weeks, it's been months and years. And, and we still have a lot more work, and the work's to be ongoing, and their participation is be invaluable to deal with this community problem. And, we just have to make some tough decisions, have them all well thought out, and it's be for the betterment of our whole county. And, we're all on the same goal for that. So I'm looking forward to the 29th to reiterate or consider alternatives and go forward from there. But we have to address this, and we have to address this now, because we have people down there. The camp is just growing. It's insanitary. It's not helping anybody. And we just got to move forward. And And so that's where I'm at with it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Patello. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I really like to commend the public for coming here today, listening to us, and we did listen to you. We heard you loud and clear. Unfortunately, it wasn't a full vended session, but that opportunity will rise on the 29th at 7 o'clock. At the same time, I honestly believe we established some direction. We're going to go with the 24-hour session facility. How the money's going to be used, I had a lot of questions before coming into today, and I'm very glad that now we have a direction, and that I'm at ease now. I'm very comfortable about it. And the only issues out there now is the facility, the location of the facility. That's it. And I hope that on the 29th, we, the board, finally get a resolution on the location, because it's way overdue, and we got to move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. You're very welcome. I want to thank everybody, too. We really appreciate your comments, and it's obvious to you now that this board voted 5-0 to have this meeting on the 29th, because we understand that you have concerns, and we want to make sure that we hear you out. The sooner that it happens, the better, because I agree with Supervisor Patello. We have a sense of urgency. You know, those folks, if the rain that they say is coming this season, we have a public safety issue that we're not going to address soon enough. So for me, the urgency is there. When you see folks out there that need help, we should be stepping up to the plate and doing this. So I'm glad that we're going to do this sooner than later. We have an obligation as a board to provide services and a bridge to success for these folks. And if we don't act fast enough, we're going to lose some of these folks because we haven't done our job. So we thank you. We invite you to the meeting on the 29th at 7 o'clock, and we can move forward so that we can lock this in and make sure that we provide what these folks are needing to have. So thank you. What we're going to do is now have a short break and come back and resume with item number 23.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can we do the marijuana one next?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's there an urgency?
There are a bunch of members from the public.
Thank you, everybody. I'd like to continue our meeting, regular agenda item number 23. CAO Espinosa, if you could introduce that item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as we're contemplating the new year, 2016, it's fast approaching. It'll be upon us before we know it. Solidifying, next steps with regards to sales tax in the unincorporated area will be in front of us before we know it. So a couple of things I wanted to share with the board prior to us actually getting into the agenda was some historical data that Joe Paul was kind enough to provide to us, or to me, was the last time a tax measure that was passed in our county was in 1993. And that was a 4.5 year, 0.5% sales tax that actually passed. And since then, there were some other initiatives that were tried and lost. There were about 3 initiatives that were lost. And all 3 of them, they were 2/3 a vote that was required. And then the last one within our county, not necessarily our county itself, but the city of San Juan Bautista, they actually put on the measure 0.75% increase, and that actually did pass. That was a 50%. So with that being said, I thought it was appropriate to highlight that it's been a while since we've actually moved forward with the sales tax initiative. I know we've been discussing this time and time again, but I think we're getting to the point now where we're going to have to really kind of put into motion how we're going to tackle this. And I wanted to be clear with the board how we're going to actually do that. So Sarah has actually put a good presentation together and how to move forward with the sales tax initiative. So, Sarah?
Good morning. Morning. So at the last board retreat on August 11th, 2015, there was staff direction to plan for educational opportunities, 3 meetings for information and or town hall activity. You also wanted to discuss what your message would be and bring back polling costs so the board had a better idea of what those costs look like and could potentially consider that for a second time. Today, I hope to discuss those items and also make some very clear distinctions between a county-funded public education message and including educational committees and workshops versus town hall activity or that kind of item. So we'll all be discussing public education number 1, specifically what county funded would look like, the message, and how we would outreach to the public if you so decide to go that route. Whether or not you want to poll, you have a draft RFP as part of your packet just to give you a framework to what the statistically valid public opinion survey could potentially look like. And we'll be discussing some potential dates specific to public education outreach, again, specified to a certain message, and then looking at March 11th, our first deadline for finally getting you guys to the final goal, which is what does that ballot and advisory question look like? And I want to emphasize today, as Ray had mentioned, that is the direction and determination that staff needs from all of you, each of you, is what that ballot and advisory question looks like. So let's first talk about what a county-funded, as we discussed at the board retreat, a county-funded education message could look like. Again, if it's paid for by county dollars, it has to be neutral and balanced. So at the last board retreat, I provided some options. I've numbered them here. You guys have the handout for the presentation. One item or example would be to educate the public on what is the difference between the city and county and the services we provide and the mandates that are upon us. Another idea, and I apologize, number 2 is written not very well. Yeah, thank you, Louis. You can get the lights. I understand that from a majority, if not most, of the board members have concerns about our roads. At the joint meeting, the County Board of Supervisors did approve a transportation tax for COG to lead. And understanding that there's a limited amount of dollars and a very large amount of needs, thought it might be a good educational opportunity to help the community understand what a transportation-specific tax pays for, mainly those state roads and pieces of local areas. But the point is, not all of them. Not all of the problems can be solved with any one set dollar. Transportation tax or even an unincorporated sales tax. point is both of them would have to come together to help pay for that. So what does that look like in regards to education? It's just another talking point to possibly have that the county could fund. This is what a transportation tax pays for. This is the need that is still out there. This is the potential items that we have left. So another point to consider. Third, we often hear comparisons from the public, and very much so with parks specifically, regarding what the city of Gilroy or the city of Morgan Hill has. I think it'd be interesting to compare, and I think this has been mentioned before, revenue sources for those different counties and cities, specifically the special districts they have, their tax bases, even property taxes. Population is obviously a point. A little fact for you, given my parks kind of responsibility. I was looking at some of the numbers for Santa Clara County and ours, and very broadly, I calculated that for each individual in Santa Clara, they have approximately 0.2 acres of park space per person. We have 0.002 in a landscape that's actually much more open and larger. So it's just interesting to start comparing those things. Again, we're being compared to a county that has had a parks department for 50 years and has 29 county parks and 40,000 acres of open space. So just trying to compare truly, apples to apples, let's give us a fair shot to compare and educate on. Item 4 is, did you know facts? This concept was based on an item that the CAO gave me. I believe it was from CSAC on why counties matter. It was, annually, they do this each year on why counties matter and try to publicly provide that information. So I had asked department heads to pull together some information for me, just in regards to for our annual budget. I think it'd be interesting to know. But that's also something that we can educate the public on to try to make the connection of county services more relevant in their lives. For example, the clerk recorder in the fiscal year 14-15 issued over 1,800 vital records. That's birth, death, and marriage certificates. The sheriff's office, from their last annual report, in their corrections department had over 2,500 bookings, 12,000 calls for service, and many more details like that maybe the public doesn't see or hear about every day. I think it'd also be interesting for us to, maybe so or maybe not, Brent can tell me, but how many miles of road have we paved, or how many potholes have we been filling in the last year? In addition, going back to the roads conversation, potholes aren't the only answer. I don't believe it's the only thing that County Public Works provides. There's different services in regards to road maintenance and repairs that they do. So making that very clear that we're not just talking about fixing potholes. Maybe there's culverts or other things that I don't have the specifics on. I'll leave that to them, that need to be looked at. General funds, services. So another item is how our general fund revenues are spent. We do talk about that in our budget annually, but emphasizing to them, I believe, don't quote me on this, but about 61% is from either state aid or federal aid. And just the breakup of how the general fund specifically is spent, mostly law enforcement, how it breaks up to salaries and services, etc., I think would just be an interesting fact for the public. The last item would be brought also by a county-funded education message. What is, from administration, current and anticipated needs? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But obviously, we're dealing with 7 different things here. Each supervisor has what their community members in their district are telling them are their needs and desires. Administration is saying, hey, this is what we know is coming up for operations in order to meet our mandates. And then we also have, what else do we have? Administration, the public, hello, right? Wants and desires and their needs, what they see on a daily basis. So I know we've had this conversation a lot, but it is a difficult conversation to have because we're trying to balance so many different things. So in regards to the type of outreach, so I'd just like you to keep that county-funded possible education message in mind, what we just discussed. And now let's look at outreach. So that type of the outreach we could have with that message would be a website, easy to create on the county website. We can create flyers. I've gotten a very broad quote of $500 for 3,000 colored copies. A public education can be appointed by the board, but again, their message is restricted by the same message, whatever is determined, but that's county paid for. And educational workshops, again, restricted by the message that's determined and paid for by the county. That's neutral and balanced. And if so decided, a perfect opportunity to provide surveying options at a public education workshop or just basically having county staff and administration meeting with the public about what we're doing on a daily basis, what cool projects are we working on, really showing them, I think, visually, using GIS to show them the different roads and the areas that we're working towards a pavement management system so we can better understand the needs of the roads, that we have created a map to make sure that we're having conversations with the cities about different parks and joint projects, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the OR is highlighted here because I wanted it to be very clear between what a public education workshop is and what that message is versus what a town hall or individual supervisor-led meeting would be. In that sense, messages aren't restricted. That's up to each individual of your own to select that date and have whatever message you so wish at that town hall event. But again, it's very different from what the county pays for or what can be helped by how county staff can help you. Now, does that mean that a educational flyer that's created cannot be provided to you for your town hall meeting? Absolutely not. The educational message can be provided to you kind of as a tool, just an asset for you to go and supplement whatever your message might be at your town hall meeting. The point is, whatever is county paid for, again, can be used on both sides of the argument, for and against any kind of sales tax. So.
Yes, we have a question,
Yes.
Sarah? Go ahead.
I think we talked about this already.
We did.
But I just want to make sure I get it clear. So, from the educational perspective, we don't fall into any landmines on if it's a 2/3 votes or a simple majority, right? What I mean is, okay, we're going to educate the public, blah, 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 and it's for roads. Is that that triggers a 2/3 votes?
So we're confused. I want to change the terminology here. If we're educating public about roads, it's not necessarily us saying we're going to use the sales tax for this. Okay. It is administration saying these are the problem areas we've identified. We understand we need a pavement management system to really put some data and some facts behind that and what the actual cement looks like and what the years look like of life of that road. That's education.
Okay.
Town hall message can be very different. Then again, I won't be there to help you with that town hall message. Does that help?
Well, I figure if you're an elected official and you're out there educating, you're not defining the ballot yet.
Right. We're doing our homework to get to that ballot and that advisory question.
Okay, got it. I got it. Okay, thank you.
So, with that, as in the AIT, once we determine if you want to go the route of paying for a county-funded education message and whether or not you want to go with what's on this item or potentially discuss that further, and how we're going to reach out, then we're going to talk about the polling. I know at a May meeting there was a decision against this, but it has been asked to be brought back by your board during the retreat. And I want to emphasize the purpose of the statistically valid public opinion survey is for us to get to this final mark over here, our ballot and advisory question. My hope as staff is to get to a ballot and advisory question that not just a majority of the board agrees on, but that you all are satisfied with. And there's two ways of doing that. Using the RFP that you have in front of you and selecting someone to do a survey. If we went that route, we would have a selection process in October. A poll would go from November through January. And that would basically create our roadmap for how you need, what are the needs and desires of the community at large? What are they of the key groups? Or, as Supervisor Rivas has mentioned in the past, going at it alone in each supervisory district. Either way, this is where staff needs direction. Would you like the information to be provided and, for a lack of better terms, have your homework done for you? Doesn't mean that you won't be out there, but it'll be provided through a survey and poll. We would look at questions like whether or not a sales tax increase would be impacted by a sunset date, identify what a majority of the community is looking for, or basically on the red side here, you guys can absolutely, and maybe you know those answers today. But this is the direction that staff would need, because we need to get to the ballot and advisory question that makes everybody happy here on this board. So it's a very drawn-out situation for if we do the public opinion survey. If we go the route of no, then from now until maybe even December, staff would recommend coming back in December and asking all of you individually the answers to these questions to your left. What are the priorities in your district? How much is too much? That refers to the quarter, half, 0.75% raise. Would your constituents like to see a sunset and advisory committee? And then a county administrative report. I put this there because obviously administration needs to do their own homework to also help you make decisions. As we've discussed, we're not only balancing the needs of each of your specific districts, but also looking at what our current and anticipated needs are from administration to maintain operations. So, looking at the AT, I know this is a lot. Do you want to pay for a public education message? Would you like staff to assist you with that and do it through the ways of flyers and websites? Now, the specific is through the AIT, you'll notice it says public education workshops, and forgive me, it says October, November, December. It really should read November, December, January. If we're doing the public education workshops, would be restricted in messaging. Do you want to do the RFP or decide on specific town hall meetings? Now, you don't have to not do town hall meetings, obviously. And are you happy with the education message, or the direction of it at least, that I've presented to date? And if you would like to discuss that or allow staff to kind of move forward with that. So, questions, comments? The goal, again, is to get us to the ballot and advisory. And
yeah, well, my opinion is that if we're going to go out and ask the public for money, we need to make sure that, number one, is that we're before them, and they can tell us what they feel are the needs for this, for their districts, for their community. We need to hear from them directly. And we have to be committed. The public education is critical if we're going to take this step, to make sure that we tell them what are the needs, what are the anticipated needs, just as you said on this presentation. So I would support it. I mean, that's the commitment we would need to make. So, Supervisor De La Cruz.
Yes, Madam Chair. For my district, and I can vouch for Supervisor Rivas' district too, our constituency is about 95% city voters. What message am I taking to my district if it's a unincorporated sales tax? Because my 98% of the voters ain't going to see that on the ballot.
Well, I think that's what Sarah was referring to in the education part. What does the county do? What do we use our money for? What are our needs right now? And what are our anticipated needs 5, 10, 20 years from now?
Now, here's a follow-up question, Madam Chair. My follow-up question is, if Supervisor Rios and myself ain't going to participate in our district, but somehow have a secondary participation role, does that mean that both our supervisors' districts won't benefit from this sales tax?
No.
No.
Yeah.
City residents still vote on this, don't they?
Nope.
Not at all.
Unincorporated only.
They have to be in the unincorporated area of the county. If they're city residents, they don't get to vote for the county part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So that's a valid question, yes.
Follow up, have we made that determination already?
We made it. That's
Yes,
right.
we're
made
going down that path.
So my best case scenario in this case, Madam Chair, is that for I to participate with my fellow supervisors, in consideration that there's some kind of partnerships that will happen with the city of Hollister and San Diego County. I'm not, some kind. I'm not. Dollars is not the issue. Is the concept that there'll be partnerships. Perfect example, the library. I mean, good example of the library.
And the roads that we all share,
And
not
the
just
roads
within
that
the
we all
city,
share.
but on the...
Right,
Yeah.
the roads we all share. Safety, public safety, absolutely.
Okay. Any, you have questions, Supervisor Reed?
No, I guess more of a comment or maybe a question. I think the public education is certainly important. And yeah, I share. I don't have a concern. I understand that. In my district, I'll probably have like a street in rural San Benito County and maybe a handful of voters that will actually see the ballot. But I certainly I believe that we need the sales tax to be at par with the city of Hollister. We certainly need the revenue. There's no hiding behind that. But I certainly will make the commitment to help out, whether it's in other districts or just throughout the whole county, because it's something that we need as a board and something we need as a county. But I still stick to my original comments that we don't need a professional a public opinion poll. I think that we've all served long enough to understand what the needs are in our community and the expectations. Certainly, whether it's a library, roads, or public safety. And certainly I think we need to invest a lot of time relatively soon on public education, and not necessarily education, but reaching out to local residents to see what it is that they want and see what it is that they care about. So,
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess I have a question on, I don't know if I'm directly asking Supervisor Rivas, but for me, especially with COG, COG did the public poll. They found out the community would support a 50%, a half a cent is what I'm trying to say, sales tax, and found out that they would support some of the money going to Highway 25, some of the money going to other projects, local projects. For me, I'm not sure that we can find out what our community is going to really support, whether it's a 1% for 5 years, 0.5% for 30 years, 0.25% forever, unless we did a polling to find that out. I'm not sure we have the time and the resources to do that and really find out what the community would support, and then that way we can direct our efforts to what the polling would say. So that's kind of my feeling on the public polling.
Supervisor Patella?
I agree with that analysis, as well as far as another avenue to let the public know that a sales tax is be on the ballot, because a number of people in my district do not receive the local paper and don't take the time to watch this very interesting meeting. And so, we just had an agenda item before us earlier, and people were complaining about being uninformed, and it's hard to inform people in this day and age. It really is, and I think the poll at least kind of gives an awareness of something's happening. At least that's what I get when I get polled through the phone. And, in preparation of this meeting, we met with staff, and there are so many needs in this county. This county historically has been operated with baling wire and duct tape. We just, even in the best of times, we don't really have the resources to provide the level of service I think other areas are accustomed to. And, that's why, I'm going to go out and support whatever level of the sales tax addition we decide on to my constituents, in the fact that, this is a partial list of things that would make government more efficient and services available to the public. And it's some real basic needs. And I do have reservations, though, of going out to my district and, what do you guys want? You voters, my constituents in District 2, and falling into a trap of making promises that we can't keep. This money is just to, we're not paying, it's different than Hollister's sales tax, different from San Juan. But this money is to kind of enhance our ability to provide services. even if we're successful with the COG sales tax at the half cent, I think if we go out with that to address road maintenance, and I emphasize road maintenance, it's not to expand Highway 25 for the large part, just address 25, but it's not the purpose of that tax, at least in my mind anyway. We still have road needs in the unincorporated areas, and that's be a big selling point, at least in my district. You know, I've gone around in preparation of the winter. Every single culvert that I have in my district needs attention. That COG tax is not meant for that, and we are limited in funding to address some of those road needs. So, and that's just one little part of the money that hopefully we are able to attain, but we do have to have quality of life, the library, the parks, and so forth, and split it as equitably as possible, but also the basic functions of county government. And that's where Sarah mentioned about, you know, what do we do? And people need to understand it. And I think that's where we'll get our support.
And I did want to add, the RFP in front of you is truly just a draft, and those costs for in a public opinion poll obviously vary very much depending on how long the survey is and the method of which it's done, phone, mail. Going back to what Supervisor Munzer said, we can simply specify this to the points that he mentioned so that the cost and the time for it is much less. And you guys also have the option to cap a certain amount. So whatever we can do with $5,000 or whatever it is in a public opinion poll, maybe relating to very specific items, as Supervisor Munzer mentioned. Sure. I don't want to leave today without an agreement on, do you want to have the county pay for some public education, and would it be allowable for me to bring a draft flyer double-sided back to you on October 20th and a sample website with that information for approval, and we can release that. In regards to the public education workshops, now again, this would be restricted by the public education message paid for by the county. Do November, December, January dates work? I didn't specify town hall meetings on this because I don't believe that's my area, so I didn't put any times or dates for that. I was going to leave that to each of you individually.
Right. And Supervisor Rivas has a comment or a question, and then you can continue.
So before I lose my train of thought, I mean, I appreciate what Supervisor Munzer said about what level we want to, what level we want to be at. But my personal opinion is this is going to be challenging to pass an unincorporated tax in the first place. That's why I think we got to go for broke and just do the full, 1%, because the city and county, it's not equitable. There's a 1% gap there, between what what a city resident pays and what a county resident pays. And so that's something that we need. I think that needs to be a point of discussion as far as making it equitable across, all jurisdictions. So that's why I think. I think if we do a public opinion poll, sure, we could get a precise idea of what is more likely to pass. But we're talking about such a small electorate. If we're just talking about unincorporated San Diego County, we're talking. If this is going to be a primary election, you're talking, maybe like a 25% turnout. You're talking about a small number of voters. Mm-hmm. We just got, it's going to be incumbent on us to work hard to make sure that we get our message out there. So, Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Sarah, go ahead.
So the public education message, again, whether or not you want to do the poll or absolutely not, and then we can still determine. So if we didn't do a poll, this red area can still be supplemented again by if you decide to do the educational message and flyers. And basically just, if you're okay with the concept of that education message, again, I can bring it back on October 20th for a final approval of a draft. But other than that, that is what we're looking for. Again, also, I would recommend that by December, if the route is no poll, that by December we have an agenda item where we will discuss individually from each district answering these questions so that we can start drafting out that ballot or advisory question and have you have something to agree upon. And that gives us a good time frame, December and January, basically, to really hash that out and agree upon it. And we'll find out then maybe what one district has and another and where they match and et cetera.
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sarah, if, and I understand it's a big if we gave you permission to do the public opinion poll, how soon do you think you would have the results back for that?
So the expectation is that you guys would, and it is a short time frame because we wanted to give ample time during November and December months given the holidays. So the expectation in the RFP was that consultant would come back to you in the first February meeting. And at that first meeting, not only would you receive those results, we would start those conversations of an agreed upon question, because at that point, we will pretty much have 2 meetings to make sure it's done by March 11th and given to the elections office.
Okay, so if we were to go that route between now and February, we would not even know what percentage we would be going out to
Correct.
the voters for as we're talking to them.
Correct.
That's awful late to do that.
Too late. Yeah. Any other questions? Let me open it up to the public. Or may we turn the lights on, Sarah?
Yeah.
Are you pretty much done with the presentation? Yeah, I'd like to open it up to the public and have any. Marty?
Yeah, I was having a comment on something. Marty Richmond from Hollister. Look, I'm a little concerned. I think you're drifting a bit, maybe more than a bit. You need to get a professional who does this soup to nuts. The reason is, number one is that will tell you the best election to go for to get it passed. They have all that data. Number two is they will make sure whatever poll you do is a statistically significant number so that that the results mean something and that the questions mean something. And the third thing is you don't want to do any education before you get the poll results, because the poll results don't only tell you what the public thinks they want, they tell you what the public thinks is going on, which is sometimes not, doesn't match what's really going on, if you understand what I'm trying to say. What they believe is happening and what they think is happening are 2 different things. So maybe your education has to concentrate on focusing on correcting misconceptions sometimes. Also, you could put 1,000 items on there that you need in the hope that you'll find one that'll ring the bell with some voter. The problem is going to be is those confuse the voters. The more items that are on there, the more people vote no, not yes, because they go. Doesn't mean. I found the most effective ones, and from watching from the outside, are ones that have 2 or 3 messages, 2 or 3 simple messages, not 1,000 messages that may be perfectly accurate but are very complex. Not because the public is too stupid. They don't have time. They're busy. They got their regular lives to do. They're going to take it and they're going to look at it and they're going to make a decision, yes or no. And they need a simple message to decide what it is. One of the big items I think that we're passing up talking about is the fact that if this doesn't get incorporated, your commercial nodes that you voted specifically to put in on 101 and other places throughout, they won't return anywhere near the amount of money you think they are, because if this doesn't. So you need to talk about that. It's not just about what do we do with the money. It's the fact that if we don't agree to tax ourselves, and I will pay some of the taxes in the unincorporated area, even though I live in Hollister, I do things in the unincorporated area. If we don't agree to tax ourselves, the law is we can't tax anybody else. We can't tax the people coming through to buy gasoline and the thing. And that's an enormous, the result of that, of not winning that, is an enormous amount of money. A tremendous amount of money, and coming in from outside the county, exactly where we want it. So I'm concerned. I think you're in, I don't want to call it indecision. I understand you're trying to do the right thing, but I think you're just trying to cover too much ground. I think you ought to get a professional who does this soup to nuts, including which election to be on, and at least get their advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public? Ann?
Ann Ross, Hollister. I just happened to have done a 2-year thesis dissertation on sales tax. in graduate school. And it turns out that statistically significant, it just made me think of it while Marty got up here, that people don't travel out of an area to shop. It's not statistically significant amount of people travel outside an area to save a 1% sales tax or even a 0.5%. So you wouldn't say to yourself here in town, well, I'm going to wait to go, like we used to with gas, when gas was cheaper someplace else. Well, I'll wait to get it in the other place. People don't register the sales tax in their head normally on the grand population to say, I'm going to go to Gilroy because their sales tax is lower, or Salinas, it's lower. They don't calculate that in. There might be a sale or something that would make them go out of town, but they don't travel out of the area for a reduced sales tax. So Marty makes a good point. People will be coming through. If we don't tax ourselves, they'll be coming through. And they're not going to say, well, while I'm there, I'm not going to eat because the sales tax is up at 0.5% or 1%. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else from the public?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors. Christina Chavez-White. I'm a resident of the City of Hollister, communications and outreach consultant. I think it's important that the county engage in public outreach and engagement regardless, including possibly holding weekly office hours, town hall meetings, occasional drop-in coffees, making presentations to civic organizations such as Rotary and seniors groups, moms groups, school and organization boards, etc. The fact is that the overwhelming majority of the public doesn't know, therefore have the ability or to adequately understand, much less appreciate or criticize the work that you do or don't do in a constructive manner. If you get the opportunity to sit with CAO Espinoza over any amount of time, you can come to understand how the county has moved to sustainability and is evolving to meet the needs of our residents, businesses, visitors, and our future investors. We can do moderated tele-town hall meetings over the phone, supplemented by interactive websites like GoToMeeting and online engagement platforms such as Civinomics. Flyers are only as good as if they are bilingual and placed in the mail, emailed, or placed in someone's hands with a conversation. You have a healthy amount of statistically significant survey data and input collected from special district polling that you just did over the past couple years through COG, through the Hollister City Elementary School District and high school bond measures, not to mention the Vision San Benito focus group findings, the Healthy San Benito Initiative, and more. There are also numerous case studies surrounding us, several cities, counties within the region that have successfully passed tax measures in the past few years with the right leaders, carrying the right message to the likely voters. Likely voters, don't be spinning your wheels or wasting your resources. Marty is right. Robert's right. They've been there, done that. We do need a professional to help lead you to be building your message, informing and engaging the public, and setting the stage for an eventual successful campaign. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with the public comment as far as having a professional working on this, and I understand why we can't do it as a government advocating it. That's clear. That's the law. But to have a professional working on it, where would the money come from? We would have to use taxpayer money, and I don't know, is that legal?
So, in a very summary fashion, the board and the county can spend county money on educational information. It can also spend money on polling, provided that the polling is done on a neutral basis and that the results are made available to everyone in the public. Once the question is, the ballot question, or once the decision is made to put an item on the ballot and the question's framed, then the county can no longer use money to advocate or support or defend the proposition.
But the individual supervisors can't.
The individual supervisors retain their First Amendment rights. However, they cannot use county resources, again, to advocate even in their individual capacity. So you can't use letterhead or the county computer system, or if you had your petty cash fund, which of course we don't have, but stuff like that. You can't use any of that.
Okay.
Copier.
Yeah, well, that kind of answers my question. So, where Supervisor Munzer and Chair Barrios and myself have to go out and really beat the streets, Supervisor De La Cruz and Supervisor Rivas's obligation is probably provide the money.
I like that.
I'll second that one.
Let me start the investment. $1, would that do it?
I don't know, but anyhow, it's a challenge. No matter how you cut it, just in my district, I have Aromas, the outlying areas of San Juan Canyon, and a little bit of Hollister that's unincorporated, and coming in towards Hollister, and roads continue to be an issue all through there, and maybe the canyon. Fire services and things like that. But it'll be hard to sell if too much of the promises are kind of linked to improving parks in Hollister, at least in my district.
Right.
And the library, and I remember 25 years ago when we were looking for a library tax. And I sat in a boardroom with the Farm Bureau, and I don't know who said it. I won't mention names anyway, but they said, well, my cows don't read. Why would I want to pay more? And that's kind of what we're be up against a little bit. And, I certainly want to address some of the needs on this list, and also address the needs that would benefit District 2. So I don't disagree. Maybe we should go for the 1% and get that out of the way. And somehow we have to do better than what we did with the TOT tax and the vehicle abatement fee. And we have to be a lot more aggressive. So I'm not sure what the answer is and how you get the professional working on it, but I truly agree that we need help on this one.
Yeah, I agree as well. Now, we talked about being in the June, the primary, or in the general in November. Does COG go in after this board decides when they're going to put their, this ballot?
You mean the order on the ballot?
Order on the ballot?
Order on the ballot, and if Angela's listening out there, the county-wide measure would be placed first. So the transportation tax would be placed before the unincorporated. It just depends, but I don't know if we've made that decision on the June or November. I'm not sure if COG has decided in November. So COG's in November. I don't think the board's made the decision yet on when for the unincorporated sales tax.
Okay, but COG already decided, their board already has decided, their commission or
I'm looking at Mary. She's nodding yes.
They have already made their decision for June, so we certainly wouldn't want to do this.
No, for November.
November. So
November.
then the 1% would have to be in the June ballot then.
Correct.
Okay.
You could. It would make sense.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what my position is. I believe that we should go for the 1% tax, which we already, have talked about extensively, to be on the same level as the city of Hollister. And if we're going to do that, the education part of it is critical for people really, like I think it was Marty who said, correcting, that is very disturbing. Correcting the misconceptions, and it has to start somewhere, and we start with educating folks. So I think that is a job that we have to do. Can we do it on our own? I don't think so. I think we need professionals to help us send out the message and send it out correctly. So that professional will help us put it on the website. How do we put it on the website? Will help us prepare the flyers, will help us design the what are we calling them? Not the town hall meetings, but the
Public education workshops?
The workshops, and that will in turn, I believe, help us to be successful. A well-designed educational plan structured in the next 3 months, starting in November.
Okay.
So that's my take on it. Anybody, any other comments? Okay, any other comments from the public? All right, so let's go ahead and give direction. The questions that you have asked, Sarah,
Yes.
is the recommendation. Agree to 3 dates.
Yes.
I
November, December, and January.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we agree on the dates of November, December, January, and direct staff to hire a professional to help us put this message out professionally in the way of organization, in the way of website, in the way of flyers, whatever it is that we need to do. And that's my motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'm going to second your motion for sake of discussion. Are we overstepping the bounds of what we could do with hiring a professional to send out the message, or is this strictly within the parameters of where we could stay with as far as the information to the public?
Yeah, it has to be education only.
Correct. Neutral and balanced,
Yeah,
not
and-
advocacy.
Got it, then?
Yeah, and I might add, not to the motion, but what I also like to add is that information such as who are we, what do we do, what are our needs, those are the kinds of things that will get our folks thinking like, you know what, they know what they want to do with this money. Those are the needs of the county. This is what we will support. And so I believe that that's the professional level of help that we're going to need and how we put the message out.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is, and I think you made it part of your motion, to do a 1%.
That is correct.
Okay. Have we decided on how long we're going to be asking the voters? And at what point are we going to determine that?
I don't know. Sarah?
So depending now, and from what it's sounding like, this hiring of a professional person is for an educational message, not necessarily a survey. So with that said, the depending on how long and the how much would be staff and all of us coming back in December for you guys to have some time to go out and answer that question. Because I don't have the... I mean, I guess in the polling and in the educational message, we could add a piece there that says, you know, how would a sales tax be impacted? That's educational, and determine that sunset and the percentage of where that top falls. I'd support it or I wouldn't.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
So if we're going to hire a professional, I think what the direction should be is we'll hire the professional to come in to give us direction on, is it going to be a 1%? What is it going to be? I think that would be really helpful to have that professional do that. Kind of wrap this all from the beginning to the end. And whether it's going to be 1%, whether it's going to be forever, whether it's going to be 7 years, I think that's what we need to have. So that would be my recommendation to your board, that we go ahead and move forward with that and get a professional in here for that.
Okay. Yes.
And I also, I support this concept, this tax. I just don't support, I'm not going to support it because I don't support I'm going to support the motion because I believe that we could do this on our own, that we don't need to pay an exorbitant amount of money to get someone from Sacramento to tell us how we run an election here locally. So
I think my idea was really not on how to run the election, but more like in how do we put out the information so that it is understood, it's well presented, it's professionally, done, and informative enough so that folks, really the information is there. That was my idea on but we can set a limit to the amount. It has to come back anyway for approval of the board once we do hire somebody to help us with this.
Well, they're not going to be doing a campaign, right?
Right.
No. No direct mail, nothing.
Nothing.
We're talking about more from an organizational standpoint.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I still won't support it.
Okay. I thought you were heading in our direction.
I think the maker of the motion should amend it to have Supervisor Rivas be the consultant.
The consultant. Well, let me ask this while we're still in the discussion part. Sarah,
Yes.
can we do in-house presentations without needing a professional to make sure that we present it in a professional way, in a timely way, with the information that we want to put out there?
I think we can. If we set the dates and you've seen what we've outlined for what a message could look like. And if you agree to that message, that absolutely can be provided internally. I mean, I'm pretty handy with Adobe. I don't think, internally, I was just thinking that we would pay for the cost for printing. Now, especially since we do have such a smaller amount of likely voters that could be handed out. Now, the bigger cost would be, and it's a valid point from Ms. Wyatt, is translation into Spanish. But I absolutely do think an education workshop can be handled internally. I'm not going to commit any specific names, but I think it can be done.
Well, I guess my concern is, do we have enough staff time to put it together to make sure that this information is presented in a manner that is well presented and is timely for the meetings that we're going to have? I know we have limited staff, so is it more? Would it be more conducive for this message and education to get somebody to help for a short term for a limited amount of money?
I think either way, you're looking at two different processes. So staff can start immediately and have something to you at the October 20th meeting. Either way, at the October 20th meeting, if you went professionally, we're talking an RFP and going out to do that. That would have to be advertised and done to find the right person.
Which we don't have a lot of time
and
for.
which we would come back on the October 20th. So time-wise, it's just different processes, but it's the same time frame I would think we're looking at. Does that help?
Okay, yes, it does help. So maybe what I'll do then is amend my motion so that we can move forward and go ahead and do, it appears to me that we're committed to the 1% for the unincorporated area.
Okay.
So is to make a motion that we move forward with it, provide the public education workshops for November, December, and January, and be prepared to answer questions and give a history, not a history, but education on who we are, what we do, what are our needs now, and our anticipated needs. That's my motion.
Okay, I second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, I believe. Yeah, 5-0.
Yeah.
Have we given you clear direction,
Yes.
Sarah?
No polling.
Oh.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move. We're going to take, let's see. No, we already took our break. We're going to take our lunch break and come back with items 24 through 26 and our closed session items at 1:30. Is that okay with the rest? Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may?
CAO Espinosa?
Just got word of some good news. Governor just signed the E-Raft, so that's great news for the county. So
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that information. Okay, we'll see you all at 1:30. Thank you.
Going up individual checks or?